On the review agenda, Battlestar Galactica, the new series. I do own the old series, however, and will get around to seeing that because I've seen enough of it to determine that I should see it all the way through. So, my ultimate reaction with this show is that it's a good show and is fairly well thought out, but as the show went on, it got less well done. I hope I can touch on more of that later on in this video. So, how the show started out, it surprisingly did a very good job of introducing us to the major characters, even though we kind of do forget the names fairly easily. But we know who they are and the relations between each other, so that's at least helpful. And I also like the desperate tone and the realisticness of how everyone is trying to handle their situations. And I was surprised at how I felt for a couple of them, and I barely even know them, because, after it was discovered that, Boomer is a Cylon, I felt sorry for her as she's gradually starting to realize it, and especially for, the Chief. And then for when, Hilo gave up his seat for Boomer, and then it's obvious that, it's hinted at that he did have a bit of affection for her. I was a bit surprised by that. Even before I saw a second of the show, I thought that he died out. I'm like, why are we writing him out? And I don't think everyone knows this. Actually, he was originally supposed to be written off at that point. He was supposed to be a red shirt character, but everyone was so impressed with his performance and wanted to know what happened to him that the creators of the show are like, you know what? Let's bring him back in. Let's do something with him. And I'm real glad they did, because his character is half the reason I enjoy the show so much. Well, not half, because I can't really credit one person for making this show so good. Or it's not as good as it was, sorry. We tracked the so good statement. And, I was also surprised at, how, at first, the fleet is keeping track of, honest issues that, human beings would face. You know, how to get fuel, food, water, reunite people, keep them on certain ships, religious arguments, even though that isn't touched upon too much in the early half of the show, and arguments between military people and politician people, and then also, I don't think this is mentioned too much, but kind of racial arguments. That's pretty interesting. And also the issue of abortion, because that's a common issue debated here in America. I've got a real stance on that, but I won't mention it. Unless asked. Anyway. So that was pretty shocking. But also, just how much they showed on the Cylons part, because the Cylons are the bad guys, but here, you want to know more about the bad guys. You don't necessarily want to support them, but you want to see what's going on with them. What are they thinking? What you think it means for the main characters. I like that. So now, going on to the individual season reviews. Season 1, I've pretty much already said all I want to about that. Just, I really liked what they did with each character and their story arcs and just how close and intimate I felt with them. I marathoned through the season with basically no complaints. It was very easy for me to do so, and just, I enjoyed it. There were some things that I kind of got annoyed by, such as the repeating arguments between the President and Admiral Adama, and a couple of other things, but I felt like that was necessary. But I'm also kind of surprised that no one did anything to Gaius Baltar. I mean, sure, it's normal for people to talk to themselves, especially if they're under stress, or get confused about their behavior, especially in a situation like that. But don't you think that they would have done something that, even though they suggested it, he refuses? I don't know, I just feel like it's something that should be discussed. And one final point. You remember the planet that Hilo gets stranded on and Starbuck eventually returns to and finds him and Athena? Well, it's obvious that the Cylons were nuking it at the end of the first part of the miniseries, so it's just kind of surprising that they can survive on there so easily. But it's a pretty good season. Season 2, it did a good job of continuing where the first season left off, because where the characters naturally went, such as discovering what happened to the number 6, what is going on with Boomer and Athena, and their relationships with all of the crew, and what the chief is doing. That was all pretty good, although, like, the killing of Boomer, that just felt kind of random. I mean, like, I know where they got the inspiration with the murder of Lee Oswald, the guy who killed JFK, but... And also, the biggest complaint that I had with this season is that even though what they produced was good, and was a very good follow-through, I just felt less intimate with all of the characters. I'm not totally sure why, because I think this is kind of the show that first introduced me to the concept of starting off with episodic plots, the beginning of major story arcs, but then developing them, and gradually, you know, like opening closed doors, allowing more random things to happen. Because I think every other TV show I saw before this either, you know, was limited and had real set story arcs, or was just episodic to begin with, but did have some major themes, but you could still kind of jump all over the place in the episodes. Just felt like I should point that out. Anything else I can mention about Season 2? Not really, except bits of with Gaius's and Number 6's baby. That was fairly confusing. I don't totally understand that, and especially the paralleling of them between Hilo and Athena's baby. I've just never fully understood that. I mean, like, is that really Number 6 and Gaius's baby? Is that just, like, the supposed creation between two species? Or just something like that? That's kind of confusing. And I've never fully been able to understand how, actually, wait, Athena never died, I think. Pardon me. I was going to say that I don't totally get how Athena can, you know, bred children, but since she never died and got to another host, I'll buy that, because living Cylons or real organs mostly, even though they don't totally need substance as much. Yeah. This is dragging on longer than I want to. I just have a lot to say, I guess. Season 3. It was basically the same thing as Season 2, really, just even more less intimate with the characters, even though they did produce many good things. And a couple of story arcs, you know, were kind of unnecessary, making Apollo fat. The discussion, the relationship between him, Starbuck, that kind of got annoying because it's kind of like what happened with Shepard and Taylor in Stargate Atlantis, where it's hinted early on in the show that they probably will develop a romantic relationship, but then what ultimately happens later on in the show just isn't reflective of that. And even though whilst established that they love each other, the question is just how much do they really love each other? And actually, the season made me so much less intimate. I look back at Season 2, and actually I call that pretty intimate with them. But I did like the progression of many of these story arcs. I still fell for many of the characters. What they did with the Cylons, well, it made it a little even more confusing. I still liked and how we learned more of the models, and then that cliffhanger, as I already did in my reaction to the end of this season when I first saw that ending. Oh man, that was good. And then moving on to Season 4. Well, it's kind of even more the same situation, except this season was pretty darn chaotic and kind of confusing. Well, not kind of, very confusing, even though I think pretty accurately discuss what went on in almost every story arc. but bits of it just didn't totally work for me, because like the stuff came out of it seemed like nowhere, such as like all the arguments between like all the Cylon models, other lead sixes coming out of nowhere, the factions between the religious Cylon guys, I can't remember his name now, and the women Cylons, but Boomers separating from the rest of her models, and just other stuff that happened. While it was interesting to watch, just wasn't as good, and it didn't flow that well. And for once in this season, all the religious bits just really did kind of get to me, because like I felt like they could have done it in a better way, and something like that, because like that group that kind of kidnaps Baldur and throws them in there, that group with them, where did they come from? Why isn't anything happened to them before? It seems like they were just written in there. Now, how they end up resolving everything, I thought that that was very well done, and stuff like that. Oh, I completely forgot to talk about the Pegasus. Well, I haven't actually seen the Razor, nor did I see the plan. I mainly just wanted to finish the series, but I liked the new story, I mean, not story arc, situations that were brought up, and it did a even more questionable bit of, do you follow the plan, do you go with more military bits, or do you just do it by a case-by-case basis? That was good, too. Okay. So I think I've said all I can about the show. I think I did repeat myself a little, but I hope I was able to get you guys' good reactions to like how I felt. Be assured, I will watch the original show. I don't know if I watch Battlestar Galactica 1980. And will I watch Caprico, Blood and Chrome? I think I will eventually, but they aren't that high on the priority list. And I'm definitely going to rewatch this eventually. Well, another thing bites the dust. Bye, guys.